Hey, Mr. Dietzen here. I'll be your math teacher this year, and so I wanted to go over what math will look like in fifth grade. All right, there's probably going to be some things that we have covered before that we'll be going into more depth with, such as maybe fractions or decimals, and other things which will be new to us, such as percent or financial literacy or three-dimensional geometry, and even algebra. So I just want to give you an idea of how math is laid out and what is expected of you in math class, and then also how we organize ourselves for math class. So first thing that you'll need is a red folder, right? That's how we organize it in math class here in fifth grade. We have a red folder, it's empty right now, but there's a handful of things you'll need in it. The first is a notebook, right? We're gonna be taking quite a few notes in math, discussing the different concepts, how to do them, why they work, things like that. So it can either just be a composition book or a spiral notebook. Either is fine. It doesn't really matter. And in a later video, I will be showing us how those notes should be laid out, what they should look like within the book, right? So what's nice is these aren't very thick, so you can just put it in your folder if you want to, all right? Things that will be going into your folder is if I turn back any homework or any type of warm-ups or classwork. I will be generally holding on to your workbooks, right? They look like this. This is your 5A Math and Focus workbook. We'll also have a 5B. That being said, we didn't have enough copies for everyone, so I've also taken the liberty of printing out copies as well. So everyone will at least be guaranteed to be getting a printed out copy, but not everyone will get a physical book until the rest of them come in, right? There've been a lot of delays from the publisher, it sounds like, because a lot of work was suspended, so they haven't been able to keep up yet, and they're getting caught up. Other than that, always keep a pencil. I really don't like using pens in math unless it's for grading, only because there are going to be so many different times where you might make a mistake in math, and that's perfectly fine. And we're human. I'll make mistakes. You'll see sometimes I have to be corrected. I might make a small error, and it's easier to erase something than just cross it out. It's just going to get so much messier. All right. So that's something to keep in mind. Just in a general math class, going into the structure of it, we'll usually try and start with some sort of warm-up. If that's a word problem or a handful of problems based off of what we had just covered, we'll kind of start that up to get ourselves started. And then we'll either have notes, which we will be, taking in our notebook about a new concept, or we'll be practicing those. And that could be in a couple different ways. In person here, if you're here in person, we're going to be working on these dry erase boards, or these small white dry erase boards, where I'll put some problems on the board. You'll do the work and hold it up for me to see if you got it correct. We might be working in the workbooks. We might be working they also have textbooks, which have guided practice questions in them as well. So lots of different ways. And within the Juno pods, I will be putting in assignments as well. So there could be, different, maybe a multiple choice question, or true, false, or greater than, less than, or equal to, or just type in what the answer is once you're done solving. Those are all options for us to practice in math. When it comes to homework, it might look a little bit different when we're online, but I know in person I try to only assign homework on Tuesdays and Thursdays unless there's some sort of scheduling conflict. It's not that I want to take things easy, but just to balance it out with the other subjects so we're not overwhelmed. One thing that I do like to implement as well is whenever we have quizzes or tests, it's very hard to have a study guide for math. And so what I like to do is instead give a practice quiz or a practice test. And what that is that would be your homework for the evening. And it's like you're taking the quiz, right? Same number of problems, same type of problems. They just have, like, let's say on the practice test, it was like 18 times 23. Well, on the actual test, it might be 62 times 51. Those are both 2-digit multiplication problems. And so you would have practice doing that process, but they wouldn't be the same ones. So you would just sit there and memorize your practice test, because that just shows me how good you are at memorizing, not if you understand math. All right, so that's generally how math is going to be laid out. Just going through the calendar, we're going to start off with place value, writing numbers, comparing, rounding, all sorts of kind of what should be review, hopefully, but just giving us a refresher going in. Then we'll be moving on to multiplication and division, going into 2- and 3-digit multiplication and 2-digit division, which I think for a lot of students early on is one of the tougher things to cover. Then from there, we move into fractions and decimals, which I have a lot of students who are like, I already did those last year and the year before. And yeah, we're building on that even further. We're going to be doing multiplying and dividing with fractions and decimals, much more complicated than, or at least more advanced than what we had been working on. Then we'll get into percents, which are somewhat related. We'll get a hint towards just a small introduction to ratios. We will be talking about graphing, a little review on mean, median, mode, and range. We'll be talking about probability, and then we'll get into quite a bit of geometry. So last year, if you did Math in Focus, you did area and perimeter, especially with like rectangles and squares. We're going to get a bit more complex with this. We're going to do different types of triangles, different other types of quadrilaterals like a rhombus or a parallelogram. Then it's going to go even further, and we're going to move on to three-dimensional geometry. So we're talking about cubes and spheres and pyramids. We're going to find out how to find the area, or the surface area, and the volume, right? I think that's one of the tougher units for students as well, because it takes a lot of what we've been building on and expands even further in, multiple step problems trying to solve this compared to just length times width. Our final unit we usually end on is algebra, which a lot of students are initially intimidated by, but it's very much just scratching the surface, and even so barely. We're very much getting the basics of what is algebra, where did it come from, how is it used. So very much the basics on that, and that's how we'll kind of finish out the year. But I'm really looking forward to math this year. I will say, it's the only the class I teach as it is here in person. But I like to have fun with it, right? I know there's some students who are like, yes, I love math, and other kids are like, I wish math was illegal. And so I really want to hopefully, for those who have a negative view, maybe give you some more confidence, some more reassurance, and some insight into math that would help improve their not only understanding, but just their attitude towards it. So as always, I'm here to help. Feel free to reach out via email, especially when we're still online. I can work with students to walk them through this. I can also give lots of different resources. What's nice about math compared to the other subjects is there are so many different YouTube channels and websites that can aid you in understanding the concept and maybe hearing it a slightly different way than I might have talked about it. And that might kind of give you that aha moment, that kind of awakening where you're like, oh, no, I see what they were trying to get at. I know how that works now. So that's what we'll be doing. Other than that, I'm looking forward to this year, guys. Thanks.